Hey guys, Roman Reaper here. It's that time of year. Finally, it's time to go over the best films that were released in 2020. Yes, there were actually more films released in 2020 than you'd realise, because how much has actually been delayed. But alas, we're here. Films have been released. Some smaller indie films, some Netflix originals, some unexpected releases, and some big blockbusters, of course. Very few big blockbusters, but there are some there. And because it's the best films of the year, I figured special video, so why not do it in front of my John Wick 3 poster? Because obviously, John Wick is very special because it's Keanu Reeves. Alright, that's enough fanboying over Keanu Reeves. I'll hopefully soon I'll try and cover the worst films of the year, so it means voluntarily watching some more bad films. But that list will probably be a lot shorter than this. But no, I'll not waste too much more time. So I'll waffle on, and I'll start off with the honourable mentions. So for my honourable mentions, I'd like to include The Old Guard. Very good fun action film, though slightly generic. Bill and Ted Face the Music. Not as good as the first two, but a lot of fun. Borat, subsequent movie film, which is nowhere near as hilarious as the first Borat, but I still really enjoyed it. The SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run. Pleasant nostalgic surprise, actually. Extraction, a pretty solid action film from early on during the lockdown. Bad Boys for Life, a huge surprise. Mosul, pretty solid, timely little war film. Enola Holmes, a pretty fun new Sherlock mystery type film, focusing on Sherlock's sister. I had a lot of fun, it was very funny. The Five Bloods, very enjoyed this, very timely, very relevant, with plenty on its mind, and very well acted from Delroy Lindo. I'd like to see him hopefully get an Oscar for his performance. And Mank, seriously, such a well crafted period piece, really well acted, and has a lot of interesting ideas, although could have slightly focused more on the making of Citizen Kane rather than 1930s politics, but that's just my preference. So yeah, that's all the honourable mentions out of the way. Let's get on to the actual list now. So coming in at number 10 is The Devil All the Time. I really enjoyed this one. It is a bleak film, but it is really good. Great acting across the board. Great cinematography. I love the way they shot it on actual 35mm film. To give it that grainy 50s kind of look to it. And it has a very good plot driven by the theme of God and religion. It does take a bit for it all to connect, but if you stick with it, it does come together in a very satisfying way. And that's why Devil All the Time has made this list just being a very good, powerful, very dark, very well acted, and very well made film. Although, again, it is slightly messy at first, but again, if you stick with it, it gets better, trust me. Coming in at number 9 is the Spanish sci-fi horror film, whatever you want to call it, The Platform, which released on Netflix like right at the start of lockdown, the first lockdown. And this was an unexpected little gem. I very much enjoyed it. It has a lot to say about like the class system and like basically doing something about the situation, and I very much enjoyed it. This message being delivered within a very high concept film, and yeah, it is very, very good. It was very well acted, and it didn't get too bogged down with exposition, with the rules of how it all works only really being explained when necessary. And there were some very good tense scenes, which helps since it's all like mostly contained to the different floors of what is known as the pit. Although there are occasionally flashbacks to how like our main character got there. The only real letdown about it was the ending, which why did they cut to black there? If you've seen the film, you know what I mean. Like it felt like they didn't really know how to end it, but at the same time they wanted an ambiguous ending, so they just kind of copped out and cut to black wherever. That said, though, it is a very good film, and you will love it. Coming in at number 8, which this might be quite a controversial pick, is Wonder Woman 1984. I say this will be a controversial pick because the reaction to this online has been quite divisive. You either love it or you hate it. There is like basically no in between. Well, there is an in between, but it is mostly just those two extremes. And I really did enjoy this film, especially getting to experience it on the big screen, which you know how much of a novelty it is in 2020 experiencing a new blockbuster at the cinema. But what an experience it was. I really liked the 80s setting, and there were some very good, like, of course, the action set pieces were really good. Like, that was kind of a given, though nothing quite on the level of, like, the No Man's Land fight from the first film. And the final act is probably one of the most unexpected things I've seen all year. It was some very powerful scenes in there. The only real letdown about it really is that CGI in places is a bit naff, and they kind of do the same thing with the final fight from the first film, where it's like all shot in darkness to kind of cover up bad CG, and it just looks awful. Like, but Wonder Woman 1984 is a really good, fun film, and it delivers exactly what we need in these difficult times: hope. Coming in at number 7 is Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler. Now, I know some of you might be saying, oh, but this was a 2019 film. But the reason why it's here is because it was released in Netflix in the UK in 2020. So that's why it's on here. Just might save myself a bunch of comments there. But yeah, I watched it on Netflix, and I really did enjoy it. Adam Sandler was brilliant. Like he needs more roles like this because he really proved what a capable actor he can be with the right material. And there's some really good edge of your seat scenes, like which the Safdies specialize in. I highly recommend you watch their film Good Time, which they made before this, just to kind of see why, because that has some very good tense scenes. And the synth score as well was really good and really helped heighten the tension. And yeah, there's not very much more I can say about it. It is just great. Just watch it. You'll probably sit down using a whole seat, but you only really need the edge to watch it because it's tense and probably one of the best shock endings of the year. If you know, you know. Coming in at number six is Onward, which was one of the last films that actually got released in cinemas before they all shut and we all went into lockdown. And yeah, I didn't get to see this actually at the cinema until October when they were showing it. But I'm actually glad I did get to see it at the cinema because it surprised me very much. Like I really enjoyed it. It was it was funny, it was emotional. Tom Holland and Chris Pratt made a great pairing as Ian and Barley, and the plot about their them going on a quest to bring back their dad for 24 hours is obviously quite a personal one for director Scanlon, but he frames it perfectly within this like Dungeons and Dragons type quest. The animation is of course stellar, but you knew that because it's Pixar, and and there are some like pretty neat little like visual flourishes. It doesn't really take like full advantage of its fantasy world. It's essentially just like, right, imagine like all these fantasy things but in the modern world, and that's essentially what the film does with it. But there are some pretty neat little visuals, and it is just a lot of fun. I would highly recommend it if you haven't got around to seeing it yet. I wouldn't write this one off just because Soul came out just recently, which I still haven't seen, but I've heard it is very good. But yeah, Onward comes in at number six, just not quite making the top five. So now we're into the top five, and getting off the top five is Jojo Rabbit, which I really enjoyed. I saw this at the cinema and then I watched it again on Sky Store over lockdown, and it is a lot of fun. It's got a very good sense of humor, which isn't surprising because it's a Taika Waititi film. But it also has a more like tragic tone to it as well, which is that kind of balance that Taika Waititi is just a master at. And Waititi himself is brilliant as the imaginary Hitler. He starts off very like goofy, kind of camp, but gradually becomes more angry and menacing, kind of like the real Hitler. And I really like the way they explored Jojo's relationship with the Jewish girl hiding in his attic, and how they kind of got closer over the course of the runtime. There, and there are some genuinely quite emotional scenes that nearly made me cry watching them at the cinema. Like the bit where he sees like his mother after she's been hanged, or like when he's been like pushed right into the middle of like a huge battle. It's just scenes like that hit quite hard, and it has a very good soundtrack as well, making use of like English songs and German covers of songs, including David Bowie's Heroes, utilized perfectly, and it really is worth your watch if you're like into like your warrior history, or you like satires, kind of like Four Lions. Then yeah, you're gonna enjoy this one. Coming in at number four is The Lighthouse, starring Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. I didn't get to see this one at the cinema, but I did watch it on Blu-ray, and I'm absolutely kicking myself that I didn't go and see this at the cinema because I absolutely loved it. It was it's such an insane experience. Like the cinematography, it's all shot black and white with like a more square aspect ratio to make it like feel more claustrophobic. Genius, and it really does feel like a film, of of the time, and that was just such a clever little idea. It's also really well acted from both Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson giving probably the best, like, most unhinged performance you'll see all year, and Willem Dafoe just giving those almost over the top, entertaining performances. Like one scene where he like gives like a sea curse, and he didn't blink for like 2 minutes straight while filming that scene apparently, which just makes it even better. And like the score, and some of the more like interesting scenes, like some of the fantasies of the mermaid, and when and Robert Pattinson just losing his mind, or the "why'd you spill your beans" bit. It's it's quite the experience. It's is a it is a lot of fun, but not in like an entertaining, like dumb fun blockbuster kind of way. A lot of fun in an insane, almost trippy experience kind of way. You don't know what you're watching, but you love it nonetheless. Coming in at number three is Christopher Nolan's time-bending epic event film Tenet, which I I'm still so glad that we managed to get this not only released in 2020 but in cinemas as well. Like this was such a way to cap out the summer, after months and months of no blockbusters or films going like straight to Netflix or rental. It felt refreshing to be able to actually watch a big film in the way the filmmakers intended it. And what an experience Tenet was. There are some jaw-droppingly epic visuals that probably the eyes have never seen before. They combined with a brilliant score from Ludwig Göransson, who also did Black Panther and The Mandalorian. And it's very well acted as well from John David Washington and Robert Pattinson. Yeah, that's three films with Robert Pattinson that have made the top 10. And I like the more like abusive relationship shown from like Elizabeth Debicki's character, and Kenneth Branagh's really over the top Russian villain who Kenneth Branagh was a lot of fun in this film. How over the top and almost hammy his performance was, and that Russian accent. And I didn't really have much of a problem with the sound. Must just have been the screen I was in, but I was able to hear dialogue most of the time with only really it being sort of slightly burned out a couple times. And obviously the characters aren't the most fleshed out, but I think that may have been Nolan's intention, because you don't want to take away from these epic set pieces with images that have probably never been seen on the big screen before, and it really is worth a watch just for that alone. When I left the cinema, I had to had to take a bit to come back down to reality. My heart was still beating from the really gripping thrill ride I just witnessed. And that's no mean feat considering it's 2.5 hours. Yeah, number three, Tenet. Coming in at number two is The Trial of the Chicago 7, which I'm still I'm still really surprised by how that film turned out. Because, I was just expecting a fairly standard kind of courtroom drama, but what I got was probably one of the most gripping films of the whole year. It was incredible to watch. Like Aaron Sorkin is an absolute master screenwriter who, with his rapid wordplay, is able to create essentially action scenes using only words. It is incredible. And there's some quite powerful scenes which mirror 2020, scenes of police brutality and riots on the streets, and the sight of a member of the Black Panther Party being beaten and gagged. It's, kind of showing the corruption of the government of the time, which we still kind of get today. It's a film designed for 2020 as much as it is showing the experience of the Chicago 7, well, the Chicago 8, as they were actually known in 1969. It's got great acting as well. Sacha Baron Cohen, Eddie Redmayne, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt are all great. Sacha Baron Cohen has some really funny scenes, and even Frank Langella as the judge, who is he's brilliant, playing this very corrupt, powerful kind of character, and even a big A-list cameo as well, which I'm still not spoiling until you've watched the film, but if you've seen the film, you know. And that ending as well, probably one of the most powerful scenes of the whole year. And that is why Trial of the Chicago 7 has the spot it does on my list. So before we get on to the number one film of 2020, I figured I'd do the same thing I did last year and give a special mention to a film that deserves it. And if 2020 had been like any other year, this slot would probably have gone to like Sonic the Hedgehog or Bad Boys for Life, but it hasn't been a very conventional year, has it? And obviously with every film being delayed to next year or going to streaming, there wasn't much selection, but one film held strong and decided to, bump its release date forward a couple months and release in the summer. And that film was Unhinged. I went to see this at the cinema when it first released at the end of July, and it was a great experience. There's some really good, brutal scenes, and even the premise as well. It's a very relatable one, heightened enough to feel very cinematic, which gives it an edge that, this could have just been a fairly standard straight to DVD kind of film, but it's elevated with its violent scenes and captivating, relatable premise, and a great lead performance from Russell Crowe. He is an absolute unit in this film. Like he's I don't know whether he's put on weight or if it's just a fat suit, but he is an absolute tank driving that very menacing looking pickup truck, which has obviously been grilled up at the front to hide some product placement that wasn't actually allowed. But he is a lot of fun. He is exactly what the title promises, Unhinged. And, it was a really nice surprise after months end of no blockbusters and the cinemas being shut. And that is exactly why Unhinged has earned its special mention slot. This is it, the number one film of the year, and maintaining its spot basically right from the start of the year, 1917. This was such an experience. There are some really good dance scenes, which are helped really well by this one-shot style, which it breaks only once for a very necessary cut to black within the context of the story. Cinematography by Roger Deakins. Well, it's cinematography by Roger Deakins, so it is brilliant. Some absolute beautiful scenes like the burning French village, and it's quite an emotional film as well. you know, like the bit where they talk about like, you know, about home, or the bit where Blake dies and the Schofield's left alone, and he's like trying to process his grief while these guys in the truck are, you know, talking and having a laugh with each other. Or hell, even the scene in the French village where he goes and sees the mother and the baby. Like, you know, but there's also some very funny scenes as well. Mainly just the bit with Andrew Scott. That scene was funny. But what it is, and why it has earned the number one spot, is a pure cinema experience, hitting all the feels and feeling very big, very cinematic, and keeping you gripped from start to finish. And even at the end, you know, when the film ended and, you know, the lights went up, the credits started, everyone left this practically sold out screening. Not a single sound was uttered. And that is a measure of how powerful a film is and how great an experience it was. Not, you know, the reactions, people talking as they leave the film. Is if a film manages to keep a sold out screening quiet as they leave, then that just speaks to how powerful the film is, and is exactly why 1917 has maintained its number one spot from January right through to the end of the year. So yeah, that was my pick for the top 10 films of 2020. Let me know down in the comments what your picks are and what your thoughts are on some of the films I included here. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new. Don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload. I have a delivery coming soon from the HMV sale. I'll unbox that in the video. And of course, the worst films of 2020 is gonna be soon, probably just after New Year's. And I'm going to enjoy making that. That'll be a lot of fun. And hopefully get a review of Cobra Kai Series 3 up for you by the end of the weekend. So yeah, bye and Happy New Year if you're watching in 2021.